So I just want to say good afternoon. It's wonderful to see you here today, and it's really terrific to kick off this town hall focused on our sustainability efforts here at Wellesley. Today, you're going to hear from an amazing panel of the members of our community, as well as an outside expert, and I think all of them are engaged in helping Wellesley reduce its carbon footprint now and to develop what is really critically important, a long-term energy plan, which will allow us to achieve carbon neutrality in the future. So it is clear that in order to deal with our most entrenched problems, and this is clearly one of them, we really have to work together. We have to join together. And one of the things that I've been struck by, is the number of people or groups who are actually addressing sustainability, energy conservation on campus, who don't always know which person is doing what or what group is doing what. And I think today to have this group together to really, I think, understand the strength of what they do together is really quite important. Our E2040 working group is led by board member Laura Gates, who you will soon hear from, and has been hard at work since January developing a master energy plan that'll help us outline the steps and the time and the resources it'll take for us to get to carbon neutrality. They've engaged the engineering firm MEP Associates to work with us on exploring geothermal opportunities for heating and cooling on campus. This is a critical step as thermal loads account for over about 50% of our current carbon footprint. Other stakeholders across campus are also engaged in the ongoing work of locating and curbing our energy use. In the classroom, we're working to integrate sustainably related courses and curriculums into every academic program, every academic department, as well as in the first year experience. And the Paulson Initiative is looking forward and doing cross-disciplinary work in the landscape, and true to its mission, has transformed the landscape into a living laboratory. So today's panelists speak directly to how we're focused on curbing energy consumption and our footprint in the short and the long term. So let me just quickly turn to them. Laura Gates is a trustee and chair of the E2040 working group, which is leading much of the work to develop our energy master plan. Previously, she served on the Power for Women Task Force, which during the 2017-18 academic year developed a plan to address our aging cogeneration plant. That's probably an understatement. And whose work led to the multi-part energy initiative that was approved by the board last October. Jay Turner is an associate professor of environmental studies, a member of the E2040 working group, and a former chair of the sustainability committee, and a true leader in this arena in our community and beyond. Lindsay Olson is a mechanical engineer with MEP Associates, the consulting firm that we've engaged to develop Wellesley's master energy plan. Dave Chakraborty, our assistant VP for facilities management and planning, is a member of the sustainability committee and is working very closely with Laura Gates in leading much of the work on the E2040 working group. Sarah Bobrow is a science librarian here at Wellesley and is a member of the Sustainability Committee. Olivia Sheehan is the Sustainability Coordinator in our Office of Sustainability. She's new to Wellesley, but already deeply engaged in our community. I just want to say welcome to you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Maggie OConnor, class of 20, is Vice President of EnAct, Wellesley's environmental action student group that led the recent climate strike. So thank you for all that you're doing in partnership at Wellesley in service to sustainability and energy conservation. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. I want to just again say welcome. We're really glad you're here. We're going to have time for questions at the end, so if you could hold your questions, jot them down as they come to you so you don't forget what they are, because we do want to get to those. I'm just going to take a couple minutes to tell you about this governance structure of the E2040 because we're kind of overseeing this. It's a multi-constituency committee that includes trustees, students, staff, and faculty, because part of our mandate is to engage all parts of the community and generate understanding and enthusiasm across the community. So the E2040's charge is really to develop a pathway to carbon neutrality. And I think about it sometimes as developing a pathway to a carbon-free future, because that's where we need to be as a community and we need to be as a world. We want to recommend paths to meet energy needs and balance this within our mission and our other financial commitments, and just be realistic about all our priorities and how we're going to get there. We're going to identify opportunities and a timeline for doing this. As I said, we're going to engage our whole community. And when we finish this, because we're all working together to have a long-term plan, we have to have a governance structure going forward for how we're going to continue to revisit this plan, modify it as we go along and learn, and implement it in a way that is really effective. So we want to recommend the governance structure that it's going to allow us to do that. So the goals, as I think about them, is to develop this plan that has very specific targets and that charts an achievable course. It addresses all types of energy use. So MEP is working with us on our thermal load primarily, and we're learning a lot about geothermal. But we use energy as a community in lots of ways. From, I don't know, every small source and every light, and we were already investing a lot of money in in reducing the load from electricity by changing over to LED. And transportation. So we're trying to get a good look and have this plan address all types of energy. We want to, again, build understanding and commitment and enthusiasm, because we all have to be committed to doing this, because it's going to involve changes in how we do things, and we all have to commit to that. And then finally, I want a process that spurs environmental advocacy in all policy arenas. Many students and our alumni are from places that aren't as progressive as New England and Massachusetts. I live in South Carolina. And so when I'm not here, I sit on the board of the Southern Environmental Law Center. And so I spend a lot of time on environmental advocacy, and I call my senators at least once a week. It's always one of the topics. I'm sure they're always glad to hear from me. And I want everybody to start doing this, because this is at the level at which we have to make change. We're going to do everything. I'm going to do what I need to do in my life. We're going to work on having this long-term plan for Wellesley. But we all have to tell everybody at every level that they have to contribute to this, because we're all in it together. So I'm going to turn it over to Jay.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I've got about 10 minutes to sketch out the challenge before us and the opportunities, with broad brush strokes. And a good place to start is to think about, what is our carbon footprint? We spend a lot of time talking about the need to bring it down, but we know that our carbon footprint comes from all the activities on campus. The power that we generate, the oil, the gas that we burn to heat the buildings, the cooking that happens in the dining halls, the vehicles that move around on campus, right? All of that, when you add it up, comes to 32,600 metric tons of CO2. That's the 2010 baseline that we've used for planning around energy efficiency at the college. So that's a useful starting point. Now, E2040 is thinking about how to bring that carbon footprint down. And there are a lot of different factors that are in the mix as we're evaluating different options. I don't have time to talk about these in detail, but just to give you a sense, we're thinking about the environmental issues, the emissions issues that are at stake, the life cycle of the technologies we might adopt. We're thinking about financial issues and operations issues. What are the capital costs? What are the operating costs? What's the reliability of the different systems that we might consider? We're also thinking about social issues. What are the environmental justice issues at stake? What are the frontline communities that are involved in the different types of energy sources that we might procure? Do we do it here? Do we do it elsewhere? All of these are questions that E2040 has on the table. Now, we've got some goals that we've already put into place. So I want to take a minute just to sketch these out, because in 2016, the college established 3 goals, the first of which was to reduce emissions from that 2010 baseline by 37% by 2026. The second goal was to reduce emissions 44% from that 2010 baseline by 2036. And then the last goal, the big goal, is how to get from there down to carbon neutrality, right? So to get all the way to the bottom and zero out this bar chart on the left. So I'm going to keep the bar charts. I'm going to clean this up a little bit and just put those goals over there on the left side so that we've got them for reference. And I want to talk about how we're going to go about doing this. And there are things that have already happened, right? So that was our 2010 baseline that we used as a starting point. And since then, emissions have actually fallen 11% because of projects that have already been undertaken on campus, and in part from fuel switching from towards more natural gas that was being used in the power plant. So some reductions have already happened. In the next couple of years, there's going to be a major effort to do energy efficiency projects on campus. Some things are as simple as just changing light bulbs. We still have a lot of light bulbs that need to become LEDs and more efficient technology. Others are improving insulation on buildings. But projects that are going to happen in the short term that when you add them up will be a 7% reduction off that 2010 baseline. And then, as Laura mentioned and Paula mentioned, big project to refurbish the power plant and to really change the power plant from being one that generates all of our electricity, which it used to one where it meets a smaller portion of our electricity demand and we buy more electricity from off campus. It turns out that what we can buy from off campus is cleaner than what we could make on campus. And so that and some related projects are going to contribute to a 16% reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions from that 2010 baseline by 2021 when this project is completed. So when you put all of that together, we're actually on track to meet that 2026 goal, and we're actually committed to meeting it earlier, kind of finding ways to push things forward so we can get to that 2026 goal, hopefully in 2021. So that's just a little bit about kind of what's happening right now. But the big work of E2040 is to answer this next question, which is the big goal of how we get from there down to carbon neutrality. And to think about that, we need to think about, well, what else is still stacked up in this bar chart on the left? And we can divide that up into 2 big pieces. One piece is the electricity that we're going to continue to purchase from off campus. And then the other piece is how we heat and cool these big, old, really beautiful buildings. And so I want to talk about each of these in turn. So buying electricity gives us a lot of flexibility because we could try and generate electricity on campus. We could buy electricity from off campus. We could buy electricity from somewhere nearby. We could buy electricity from Maine. We could enter into contracts to buy renewable energy credits. All of these are options that we need to be considering and will be considering. And there's probably not going to be just one strategy. It's probably going to be a mix of strategies. But just to give you a sense of scale, what would it take to meet our electricity demands if we were going to go all green? And it would take one 6-megawatt offshore wind turbine, roughly speaking, to generate the electricity we would need over the course of the year, or 2 of those big wind turbines up in Maine, or a solar array that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 acres in size, or we could buy hydroelectricity from Maine or perhaps further north in Quebec. All of these are the kinds of options that are in the mix, and they all have advantages and disadvantages, and those are things that E2040 is going to be weighing and soliciting input on as we think about how to move forward. Now, I want to turn to the thermal side of this equation because heating and cooling is a lot harder to solve, right? We can't just go out and, buy new heat for our buildings because it's really built into the pipes and the infrastructure of the buildings themselves. And really the biggest challenge that we face is that this college was built on a heating system that depends on steam. And the only way to economically produce steam is to burn something. Right? And we also know that steam is really inefficient, right? You can walk around this campus in January after the snow's fallen and you know exactly where the steam lines are because that's where the snow melts first. Now, one strategy would be, well, let's just keep burning something, but let's burn something different, right? So we could think about burning biomass or we could think about burning renewable natural gas. And that would be kind of the easiest change to make. But there are real challenges from a sustainability perspective with either one of these strategies. With biomass, you're adding CO2 to the atmosphere still, and if you care about what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years, that's cause for concern before all those trees begin to sequester that CO2. Is also a lot of transportation that's involved. It would require 700 or so tractor trailers delivering wood chips or pellets to campus over the course of a year. You would also need a lot of land. You need roughly kind of close to 3,000 acres of sustainably managed forest land somewhere in New England to meet our biomass demands to keep this place warm in the wintertime. So those are concerning numbers. Renewable natural gas is natural gas that's captured from landfills or from dairy operations. And renewable natural gas is a challenge for us because there's not a large-scale agricultural industry here. We can't capture it from a local dairy facility. Really, in this region, there's a pretty limited supply compared to, say, someplace like North Carolina. We would require a lot of methane, natural gas to supply our needs. Somewhere around 2,400 dairy cows would be what we would need to secure that much renewable natural gas. So, the point with either of these is neither is really scalable from a sustainability perspective. If everybody went with biomass or everybody tried to use renewable natural gas, we either wouldn't have any forests or we'd run out of renewable natural gas really quickly. So E2040 is thinking about a different strategy than just fuel switching and burning something greener, and really taking a more systems-based approach that one is focused on efficiency for heating and cooling. And so switching from steam distribution on campus to hot water distribution to distribute heat all across campus has a lot of benefits. And the biggest is that it's just a much more efficient way to move heat around, somewhere between 30 to 60% more efficient. So you won't see these steam lines anymore on campus. You can also generate hot water through renewable technologies. You don't have to burn something to make hot water. But it poses challenges. There will be changes we need to make to our buildings for them to be heated by a lower temperature system. So hot water heat distribution is one important component of the strategy that we've started to discuss. The other, as was mentioned before, and you're going to hear more about real soon from Lindsay, is switching to geothermal heat pump-based technology. We're not committed to this, but it's the option that we're exploring most carefully right now. And what's important about this is it can be powered by renewable systems. A way a heat pump works is instead of burning something to get the heat, you're using a pump to essentially concentrate the heat and move it from one place to another place. In this instance, we're taking the ambient heat of the ground, which stays roughly 50, 55 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year, and we're moving that into the buildings using a heat pump, which is run by electricity. The advantage is that you can get the electricity from windmills or solar panels or some green source. And it's a very energy efficient process. It's 3 times or more efficient than conventional heating systems. And it's a big project. It involves a lot of infrastructure. But unlike renewable natural gas or biomass, it's conceivable that everyone could do this by taking advantage of that geothermal resource underneath of their feet. So kind of big picture, this is what E2040 is thinking about. The question is how to get rid of this not last, I mean, it's a big part of this stack. So figuring out how we can secure more green electricity and exploring heating and cooling with geothermal technologies. And once we have this roadmap, we'll know how to get from up there, just over our 2026 goal, down to the big goal, which is carbon neutrality. So I'll stop there and hand it over to Lindsay.
All right, well, Jay covered a lot of what I was going to talk about, so this might actually go quite quickly here. I'm Lindsay. I'm with MEP Associates, mechanical engineer, but I've worked with renewable energy for most of my career, so this is where I really enjoy working. So we're looking at the energy master plan of converting, as Jay was talking about, from your steam system to a low temperature hot water system with a geothermal heat source. I think I'm going to jump around in my slides some, so forgive me. I'm going to start with the last slide, which is talking about your current, what we're looking at for your future system here. So right now, you've got an energy plant, your boiler and your chiller plant, that's producing hot and chilled water that's piped out to all of your buildings. As Jay was saying, that's steam right now, and you can see where those steam tunnels are. And so we're looking at, rather than having something burned in your energy plant of converting to heat pump chillers and using a geothermal heat source to provide that energy. And so I'll get to the heat pump to talk a little bit more about that. But really what we're looking at is taking the energy from the ground and condensing it and supplying that to your campus. Some of the things we're working through right now is where are we going to put those geothermal heat exchangers? When are we going to do that? And coordinating all of that. And so that's a big thing that I think it's interesting to start setting that stage and discussing it and making sure everyone's really invested in that. Because we're talking about between probably 600 and 1,500 feet in depth wells we're going to drill, and then we put in a heat exchanger. And so the heat exchangers that we use, I've learned a lot of the old geothermal heat exchangers that were installed in this region before were open systems where they actually pulled water out of the ground, used that, and put it back in. That's not what we're proposing. This is a closed system where we're just pumping water into this heat exchanger through the ground and then heating it up or cooling it down depending on if we're putting heat in or taking it out for summer or winter, and then bringing that energy back to the plant. So I'm going to now go back to talk a little bit about the heat pump. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on this, but I think it's really interesting to understand that the heat pump, this technology that we're proposing is not, it's not anything high tech or, cutting edge, that this is really a basic technology that we're applying to your campus. The heat pump chiller is a refrigeration cycle in reverse. Every refrigerator you have, this is the same technology where it's just a loop where there is either there's cooling coming off of one side and heating coming off of the other side with some electricity input into it. And so we take this technology and we apply it to a geothermal system. And so in the wintertime, we're taking the heat out of the ground and putting it into the buildings, and in the summer we're taking the heat out of the buildings and putting it into the ground. It's just transferring the heat around. The really cool thing about centralizing all of this into your campus is because of the way this works, we're able to take all of your simultaneous load, which is the time of the amount of your heating and cooling that is done at the same time, and take the heat rejection off of the chiller and actually use that for like heating domestic hot water. So in your summertime, we're not going to be burning anything, and we're not going to be really using electricity. We're just going to be taking that heat rejection and reusing it. And so one of the nice things with this system is that we're capturing every BTU on your campus, rather than having a chiller over here dumping heat out into the air and then a water heater over here burning something to create your hot water. You're able to move those BTUs over and capture it all. And so the system is more efficient intrinsically, but then we're capturing everything and reapplying it. One of the other things is that this is seasonal storage, and so we're using that ground as seasonal storage. So in the summertime, we're putting heat into the ground, and that ground temperature actually it's typically about 55 degrees once you get below 5 feet, it's a pretty steady temperature. So we take that ground temperature and we're actually heating it up over the summertime to like 90, 95 degrees. And then that carries you into the winter and you're able to pull that heat back out. And then by the end of the winter, that's maybe down to about 40 degrees. And so we're really looking at this thermal energy storage of using the ground. And so that's a very high level look at what we're doing. And so this energy master plan is what the details we're in, is looking at the specifics of what your campus is using, and then sizing everything appropriately and figuring out how to implement this plan, so that you guys are happy at the end. I think that's all. If anyone wants to know more, I could have talked about that for an hour, but I don't think you want to do that today. So I'm going to pass at that point.
So good afternoon. My name is Dave Chakraborty. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Facilities here. And Lindsay, thank you for the excellent presentation. It was, we can talk for hours on how to get this going. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about all the other sustainability-related activities that are going on in the campus. You've heard from Laura, from Jay, from Lindsay about the specifically about 2040. So a lot of work is going on elsewhere. And we wanted to give you an update on where we are in the implementation of the sustainability plan, talk a little bit about the climate and energy efficiency work that is going on, and then ASHE STARS 2018 score. And I'll get to that, explain that when I get to the slide. So the sustainability plan sectors as adopted by the board, the sectors that are highlighted in green, the building sector, climate and energy sector, landscape and watershed, and the waste management sectors, these are the sectors that we have focused on because these represented the built habitat. This is the area, this is the habitat that we live in, and this is the area that we have focused on in the past 3 years or so. And energy initiative has been the primary focus in the last 3 years. And what we have done is, and Laura talked about it, is the first task we did was to design and a new power plant, which is, when I say power plant, that's the word we use lovingly on this campus, but it's really a central utility plant. So we are going to not generate power on campus anymore. Instead, we are going to start procuring power from the grid itself. And we are going to convert the chiller plant that produces the cooling from using steam. Instead, we will be using electricity. So that work is going on as we speak. And then also, we have identified about $6 million worth of energy efficiency projects campus-wide. And we will be working this winter and then over the next 2 summers in about 24 buildings. And then the other buildings we will be renovating. As we renovate each building, we will be upgrading the energy. We'll be upgrading the energy efficiency projects there. Recently, we have completed the energy efficiency project in Pomeroy, and Billings is the next one that's also getting done over this semester. But the problem that we are finding is that we do not use energy efficiently on this campus. And when we compare ourselves with some of our peers, we are very inefficient. So one of the first tasks that has been launched, and we have multiple studies in progress, is to figure out how do we use energy efficiently, even after all the energy efficiency projects that we are talking about, even after those are done, how can we make us even better so that we can become the most efficient energy user here. And then finally, what Laura and Jay talked about, we are working on the energy master plan to achieve carbon neutrality. Quickly, in the building sector, we are designing new buildings to be very energy efficient. The science building, for example, is 30% more energy efficient than a typical building, a science building. And the sustainability plan calls for buildings to be designed to LEED gold standard. For science, the the score right now is 78. To get to platinum, it's 80. And we are working really hard to find this last 2 points so we can at least become the first platinum building. So it's an extremely very efficiently designed and constructed building, both the L wing and the new construction that's going to happen. All new construction are getting metered now, because if you do not have the right data, you cannot manage anything. And so getting the meters installed is one of the high priorities, and we'll do it as we do each project. And then 90% of the janitorial supplies used are sustainable products. And that's important, because a lot of chemicals do get used in cleaning, and we want to make sure we are purchasing the right products. In the landscape and watershed, a huge amount of work has been done, and we have actually achieved 90% of the targets that was set in the sustainability plan. And one of the major reasons for us for meeting that is the Paulson Initiative. I think I saw Suzanne here. Oh, okay. So Suzanne Langridge has been leading the Paulson Initiative, and they have done some phenomenal work in that area. They're doing some work, and Facilities is partnering with them. So that has been an excellent initiative for us. And then in the domestic water supply, also we have made great progress, and 90% of the goals have already been met. Waste management, our current recycling rate is about 30%. Not good. Not good at all. Okay? And so we were at 25%. We increased to 30% the last year. The trajectory is right, but we need to do much better. And I'm going to encourage all of you who are here today to recycle, stop buying paper or paper products that you do not use. Don't get that magazine or that catalog from a store and then put them in the trash. Let's not do all that. Let's work really hard to get our recycling rates up. And Olivia is going to talk about other things, but she's actually the leader now, and she has taken the charge of ensuring that our recycling rates go up. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Sarah Barbara. I'm the science librarian at the college, and I also sit on the advisory committee on environmental sustainability. And first, I just want to thank you for coming. It's like the end of a long day. I mean, probably not the end of your day, closer to the end of my day. And you're here, and you could be anywhere on campus, and this is like the issue for our times, or at least I think that. So I look around the room, and I'm like happy to see a lot of student faces and others. And so just thank you for spending your time here. Right, so I sit on this committee, and I wanted to share, to kind of zoom out also, like Dave was starting to zoom out. So Dave is head of facilities, he's zooming out from his department. Let's zoom out even more. Like, what is this committee, and what is it doing these days? So this committee is one of the standing committees of academic council. So standing, I mean, it's ongoing. We meet monthly, and it's been going on for a number of years. And academic council is the group of faculty members, and so they say we want some committees, and one of them is this one, which is good. That is good. It's comprised of students, of faculty, of staff, and union representation. So that's neat, and I think that's also really important. Its basic function is to help implement greener policies institutionally at Wellesley. So when you're, Dave, talking about what facilities is doing, like the committee is like, yeah, let's keep doing more of that, and help the administration advise them on these greener policies. So we advise the president on sustainability-related issues and help the president's office develop policies regarding anything about environmental sustainability and how that should be factored into college operations and decisions. And I think it's a great committee for soliciting input from the community. Click. So who actually sits on the committee? We have 2 students, always. I am assured we are getting our students from college government sometime soon. So we do, I've been on this committee for 5 years, and we have had students, and it's just, sometimes at the beginning of the year, if students have graduated, it can take a little while, but they're coming. So you do have student representation. 6 faculty members, 2 from the arts and humanities, 2 from the social sciences, and 2 from the sciences. Always the committee is chaired by a tenured faculty member, and right now it's chaired by UA of physics. And a number of staff representing offices that are stakeholders in sustainability issues across the campus. Office of Student Life, Administrative Council, it's kind of like Academic Council, but for staff, has a representative. The President's Office, obviously, several members of the Office of Sustainability, obviously, and LTS. So the head of LTS is our Chief Information Officer, and he would sit on the committee, but I am lucky enough to be his designee, which is something that I'm very happy to be. So LTS has a voice, Student Life has a voice, so, and the union, again, we have union representation. So I think that the committee makeup actually does speak to this topic, sustainability, as being really important to all aspects of the college. So that's good. I will note that faculty and staff and students can rotate off. It's like if a student graduates, she's not on the committee anymore. But so the membership is changing often, and but that's good because you get fresh ideas and all this. Dave talked a little bit about the sustainability plan. So I think, like, from my time on this committee, that has been just a major accomplishment. And I think we can quickly move on from realizing, like, that was a lot of work that we got. The committee, like, reached out to the community, and we developed, with input from many facets of the college community, this plan for a sustainability plan. We did not have a sustainability plan for the college, and we have one now. It was approved, as alluded, by the trustees in 2016. Yay! So this is now a real guiding document for the community that we got to follow. The trustees say, you got to do this, so we got to do it. So like lots of sustainability activity on campus followed, at least in part, because we have this plan that says you have to do this. The carbon reductions we're talking about, it's like part of this plan. So the plan covers several overlapping domains, which Dave was alluding to, and I just want to expand a little bit on that. Academics, like what's being taught in our classes, what's in the curriculum, what our physical buildings, as you probably know all about our physical buildings because you live in them and exist in them. Climate, right? E2040 is interested in reducing our carbon emissions because climate is a big element of this plan. Food, one of my favorite topics. Our beautiful landscape is a whole sector. Purchasing and waste, which is like, we do a lot of both of those. Transportation and water. These are all sectors of the plan, and they're overlapping. How many of you have read the plan? Good, thank you. That's good. The president has read the plan. That's good. It's not unreadable. It's readable, right? I know that you have no time because you're students, but I do, many of you are students, I recommend it. It's your plan for your campus. You can see like a broader picture of this. So there's a link right there. Or you can Google Wellesley College Sustainability Plan. Anyways, so the E2040 group is really interested in carbon neutrality, but there are stakeholders on campus who are not forgetting other elements of this plan. And I think one of the great benefits of the Sustainability Committee with its committee makeup is kind of keeping tabs on the other stakeholders who have their thumbs in the pies of all the other sectors. I don't know if that worked out, but you get what I mean. So again, I encourage you to check out the plan because it's illuminating. So what is next for our little committee? We're going to take the year to focus on the waste reduction and recycling. And, you heard Dave talking like, this is a big thing. And so, we hear that input from facilities. Dave sits on the committee. And so, I think this is an area where our committee, made up of faculty, students, staff, can sort of approach and begin to make a big difference. We are supporting the Office of Sustainability, which you'll hear a little bit more about in a second, as they continue their efforts to sort of track and monitor our waste and recycling efforts. And I think the committee is going to spend the year working on strategies to help with this sector. So that's our big priority. And I just want to mention too, we're happy to hear directly from the community. You have representatives on the committee for any realm from the college. And so whether you're a student, a staff, union member, faculty member, come to me. I'm always out in classes. I'm like always out and about on campus. Come to any of us to raise your own thoughts and questions and concerns. I want to also apologize because I have small children and I have to get them soon. I'm going to hold out a little bit longer, but if I leave, it is not because of you, it is because of them. So that is what I have for you. On to Olivia.
Hi, so my name is Olivia Sheehan and I'm the new sustainability coordinator on campus. I'm very excited to be here. And as we heard from Dave, so my role within facilities is to help organize programs and events on campus that help individuals, such as yourselves, learn how you can reduce your resource consumption on campus. And it's important to remember that is related to energy, but also recycling. Clothing's a big one on campus, and many other things are part of our daily lives here. So today I'm taking the opportunity to talk about different things that we have on campus that you can become involved in, not only for students, but faculty and staff as well. So for students, we have a number of opportunities available across many different sectors of campus, well, both on campus and off of it. So within academics, you can take sustainable course offerings. So these are courses that are sustainability related or sustainability focused. And there are many programs offered throughout the entire course catalog, so be sure to check those out when you're signing up for courses. And then we also have the Babson, Olin, and Wellesley Sustainability Certificate. So this is a 5-course program across the 3 institutions in a variety of areas that you're also able to pursue. And if you're interested in either of these options, we encourage you to reach out to your academic advisor or our office if you have questions. Then within facilities, we have a lot going on that I'm really excited about. So we have the sustainability interns who run a bunch of different programs on campus. So our interns will cover the bike share program. We have a couple interns working on food and dining initiatives. We have a couple interns currently reworking our sustainable department certification. And then we also have a couple interns who organize our eco-rep program. And so you can apply to be an intern within our office or participate in any of the programs we offer. If you're curious to hear about events we're doing, I encourage you to follow us on social media. We are upping our game in those departments, so Instagram, Facebook, follow us. And then with eco-reps, we're really excited about this because there's a lot of different ways to become involved, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure on the level of involvement that you want. So you can run to be an eco-rep within your residence hall, or you can participate in the programs that they run. And we are rolling everything out from like sustainabilities, so they'll hopefully be coming around to a residence hall near you. So again, keep an eye out from your team mistresses to see if they'll be partnering with our office anytime soon. And of course, if you have any questions, please reach out. We're more than happy to work with you. Finally, we have our student groups, so we're going to be hearing more from EnAct in a little bit. But we also have the Regeneration Farm on campus and the Sustainability Co-op, which offer more like lifestyle changes that you can make for a more sustainable footprint here on campus. So definitely reach out to those groups if you're interested. And then finally, you don't have to be involved in one of these groups to be sustainable on campus. We're a big proponent of making student events zero waste. We recently just partnered with student government to make Fall Frenzy 100% local this year. All the donuts and cider came from a local farm. So if you have an event in mind, small or big, please reach out to us. Myself and my interns are really eager to work with a lot of groups this year. And then finally, we also have faculty and staff engagement options. So again, on the academic front, this is related to the sustainability focus or sustainability related courses or research opportunities. ASHE, this definition can be very broad, and the point is to include a lot of different types of courses in that. So if you have questions about, if you're thinking about designing a course and you're wondering how you can meet this requirement, please reach out to our office. We're really trying to hope to expand this in the next couple of years. We are really excited to talk about within facilities, we have a new sustainable department certification. This was previously known as the Sustainable Workplace Certification. And with the new program, we're really excited because it's going to be department-wide instead of based on the individuals. Not only will it be more efficient to run the program, but also give departments an opportunity to come together to be more sustainable on campus. The new program won't be rolled out fully until spring of 2020, but we are reaching out right now for Green Champions. So our Green Champions will act as liaisons between our office and your department to help roll the program out, and are really critical in making sure that it is successful in your department. So if you're interested and want to become more involved, please email me. I'm really excited. We had some folks reach out from the admin council yesterday, so it's really great to see people are already getting involved. Finally, similar to the students, if you have an event, I want to hear from you. We want to make them zero waste. We already had Tanner Conference and the first year picnic become zero waste this year, and we're really looking forward to having more. No event is too big. I can't stress that enough. Don't think, I've got too many people, it's not possible. It is. We've seen it with the Tanner Conference. We're going to do it with more. So if you have anything in mind, please reach out to me. I'm really excited to hear from you and hope to work with you more in the future.
Hi, my name is Maggie OConnor. I'm a senior at Wellesley and the vice president of EnAct. I'm happy to be here to represent EnAct and also the many, many students on campus who are concerned about the environment and concerned about sustainability on campus. So EnAct is the only completely open student-run environmental organization focused on environmental activism and environmental action on campus. And we approach environmentalism on Wellesley's campus and in the greater Wellesley, Boston area through activism, volunteering, and education. Currently, our biggest theme of the year is activism. We're really trying to plug into the larger wave of climate action and climate justice movement that's happening currently all across the world. And so we do activism campaigns both on and off campus. We helped coordinate and host the climate march that happened in September, and we saw that as a great first step to a long chain of actions and movements that we want to carry on campus and in the town of Wellesley. We're working currently with Renew Wellesley to make renewable energy a thing that students care about on campus, and we ask for a clear and detailed timeline about the renewable energy transition for Wellesley, as well as open communication between the E2040 committee and the student body and administration so that students know at every step of the way what is going on, what decisions are being made, and why these decisions are being made. We also work on activism off campus. Currently, there is the construction of an apartment building happening in Wellesley, and they're planning on plugging it into natural gas. So we are working to get the Wellesley town government to change their minds on that. And since Wellesley, as the town, is pushing for renewable energy and 100% renewable by 2025, we are hoping that we can change their mind about this current construction that's going on and push for a more sustainable option. We also do education events on campus. That's a lot of our programming. It's open to students, staff, and faculty. In the past, we've had documentary screenings. We do conferences. We do panels like these where we talk about politics and the environment. We've done that for the past 3 years. We've also done career panels, and we do smaller events like clothing swaps at the end of each semester where we talk about how fast fashion is impacting the environment and also the human rights implications of fast fashion. And we're also doing volunteer work. We try to host events at least once a month, either on campus, like helping out with recycling at Tanner or Rollman, or off campus, like plastic pickups, volunteering at local food festivals, and things like that. And currently, we are also hosting weekly climate crisis open meetings where anybody can feel free to join us Wednesdays from 12:40 to 2:30. And we just talk about our hopes and fears for the future in terms of the climate crisis, what we can do as individuals, and just, it's a very open space where we can learn from each other. So that's what we've been doing. And we have general meetings every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. in the Pendleton Atrium, usually. So you can keep your eye out for different emails being circulated around campus where we will be holding different events. And you can join or you can just attend our events. Everything is welcome, and we really want to hear from you. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tara Murphy. I'm the Chief Communications Officer here, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being really patient and listening to all these presentations. I hope it gave you a really robust view, and all of the learning about geothermal was very interesting to me. I hope it was for you. But now the fun part, you get to ask questions. So I'm going to raise your hand if you have questions, and we've got fabulous experts to answer them for you. And I know you have questions. It's been a long time. Great.
So I'm really excited about the geothermal project, which sounds awesome. I'm just curious though, because I'm still learning about it. What, if any, are the broader environmental implications of heating the ground to 95 degrees when it's usually 55?
There's been a lot of research on this topic, and none. We're talking about the rocks far below, and in the scale of what you'd be doing, it is that temperature at the range right around the geothermal system. You get out 20 or 30 feet and it drops off. And anywhere where it ties into an aquifer, the aquifers are so massive that actually just dissipates the heat altogether. There's been a lot of questions, and I didn't address it as far as, is the space above the geothermal system still useful? And yes, it is. That we don't, like, the grass still grows. It's still a playing field or a golf course, or you could build a building on top of it if it got coordinated. So it just is everything below the ground. And a lot of people have asked that question, and they've not seen any effect.
Lindsay, I was actually wondering if you could talk a little bit about the work you're going to be doing on campus shortly, and what you're hoping to learn as part of that.
About the test well?
Yep.
Okay, I was like, well, where are we going with that?
Sorry.
So one of the things we're going to do, and by we I mean all of you, is test the ground to see what sort of what your particular ground is, how fast we can drill, what the thermal conductivity is. One of the things we want to measure is how quickly we can transfer heat from the geothermal system into the ground. Is it very conductive? Is there a lot of water movement, which actually we have to we don't want to heat the ground above 90, and we don't want to freeze the ground, and so we have to size based on that. And so we want to look at all of these factors to make sure that it's sized appropriately. So there's going to be starting
Either next week or week after.
next week or the week after.
This is breaking news.
There is going to be a drill rig at the golf course that's going to drill a 1,500-foot well, hole in the ground, and then put a heat exchanger in, and then we're going to test the performance right on your campus. Otherwise, we can look at, drill logs for the region and make a lot of assumptions, but this is going to help make sure that your system is sized correctly for your campus. So it's really exciting. I mean, you'll get to see what it's like.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of good learning, and I think actually a faculty member is going to be part of that as well, right?
Yes.
Analyzing that.
Fiber optic?
Yep.
No, you're not, but for observation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, great. Okay, more questions. Paula.
So thank you to the entire panel. I mean, this was really terrific, and it was wonderful to have all of you together. So I have a question just about this whole area of offsets, because there have been a lot of schools that have used offsets as ways to change their, or to get closer to neutrality. And I've always wondered a bit what is real and what is just a manipulation of numbers. And I think what's been impressive to me about the process that we've followed is that there's been a real integrity to it in terms of trying to understand how we not just adjust numbers, but we really get to a place of decreased energy use. Can one of you just talk to kind of how we should be thinking about offsets, when they are when you think it's a fair thing to do, to implement, to improve your profile.
Jay, do you want to start that?
I'd be happy to. I guess this works there. I mean, offsets, it's a hard question because offsets come in so many kind of forms. And so I think, I mean, your point, just kind of due diligence is essential. I think there are probably offsets out there that are probably worth about as much as the electronic paper that they're printed on. And then I think there are other offset markets that are, regulated much more tightly. But I'm not sure any of us would say we have a handle on that yet. It's an area that we're going to be researching, and actually one that we see as a real opportunity to involve students in, getting us kind of a mini group of students to be kind of consultants and do a lot of research into the offset market for us for next year. But so I think it's an important topic, and one way that I think about it is there are schools that are continuing to burn fossil fuels, that are offsetting their fossil fuel consumption, which is a reasonable approach, I think, for maybe the next 10 or 15 years. But if everybody tries to solve their sustainability challenge by buying offsets while they continue to burn fossil fuels, that doesn't scale. It doesn't work if everybody tries to do it. It only works when a small few try to do that. And so I think, thinking about, are these strategies, whether they're offset-based or not, are they scalable? Could everybody do something similar to this and move us towards a clean, renewable future? That's a really important question for me. But others may have thoughts on this.
One thing I just want to add to that. So as part of our plan, we look at offsets as an important part of it in that you guys have a limited budget. That typically the closer you get to that 100% carbon free, that last 5 or 10% starts to get exponentially more expensive. And so we look at what is the most cost-effective way for you to produce that green energy on your campus, and at what point does, if we can, for example, do a geothermal system that will do all your heating down to about 5 degrees, and it's going to cost another $1 million to get from 5 to 0, but you could just burn a little bit of fossil fuel to do that peaking, and then offset that with carbon. That's probably a good economic decision based looking at the pros and cons of that. And so I think offsets as a piece of that, given that there isn't just a checkbook that's going to keep writing more checks to solve this, it's taking that into consideration.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you. This was really encouraging. I'm curious about whether it's possible to retrofit the steam tunnels, or will they be out of service forever?
It depends. The chilled water piping that's in the steam tunnels will remain in the steam tunnels. It's likely, assuming we convert off of steam to low temperature hot water, we're going to probably not reuse them for the new distribution. A lot of it comes down to it's restricted access, and so people actually working in those tunnels, it's difficult to get the pipe in there. You've got a lot of regulations around people actually being in there doing work, and so it's not necessarily some campuses have nice, huge, spacious steam tunnels, and that's a great solution. Repurpose, I guess, elaborate on what would you see as a repurpose of the steam tunnels?
No, I don't mean repurpose, I mean retrofit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Since they're already there, I'm just wondering if it's possible to
reuse
them rather than building a whole new system.
We usually look at both options and go with the one that is the best solution for your campus. It's definitely on the table, and maybe it's piecemeal, that there's areas where it makes sense and then areas that it doesn't.
Lindsay, one thing I'm curious about, who has done this successfully? Where is this happening? Because it feels a little bit, sci-fi. Like this is.
It's not sci-fi. I wish I had the slide to show you. We've got a map of all of the campuses across the country that have done this. Right now, Carleton College in southern Minnesota has just about finished this up. Ball State, which is Indiana, thank you. Miami University, which is in Ohio, not Florida. It's misleading, I understand. Are some of the big ones. We've been involved with Stanford's working on it. Princeton right now is working on it. Locally, there are a lot of colleges working kind of at the same stage as you guys is looking at the master plan. The implementation of this, I think Ball State was one of the first ones to do this large scale. There was a large learning curve on that has been figured out, but it has now been about 10 years in operation where and a lot of these schools are in climate similar to here. I mean, people say, well, you know, they look at like Stanford and they're like, well, they don't have to heat anything. So,
Right.
but southern Minnesota, I think their design temperature is like -20. Yours is about 0. So it's able to work at a much colder temperature than even here. And this is also with converting these buildings to the low temperature hot water. So a big piece of this is going from these steam radiators, where your temperature control is like opening and closing your window, to going to a low temperature radiator that is a much, it's just a kind of gentler heating source. And in old buildings, I was at Carleton College in southern Minnesota, it was an old church brick building that they converted to low temperature hot water it was a chapel. There was no like adding insulation on the inside of the building. And so they were able to convert that and get through I think this polar vortex last winter, we hit like -33 there or something, and it met
worked.
temperature. It's cold. I'm in Minnesota. It was cold.
Sorry, I guess I have 2 questions. So I think my first question is, so is E2040 like making a formal commitment to like carbon neutrality by 2040, or is that more like a rough estimate? Yeah, I just would like some clarity on that.
Our aspiration, the 2040 communicates our aspiration. When we finish this study, then we'll have a roadmap, and we'll be able to make a hard commitment. I need facts before I make a hard commitment.
Okay.
And so that's what I'm trying to do as a group. We're trying to get facts that allow us to make a commitment that we can meet. The aspiration is 2040. That's our working number.
Okay, great. So I think then my follow-up question is then, like, why 2040? I think that like the UN IPCC report like talks about how we should be attaining like carbon neutrality in like the next 12 years. And I think that, you know, solving a problem that should be solved in like 12 years in like a 20-year goal, I think like worries me like deeply. And I certainly have no doubt that like everyone is working like really hard to get there as soon as possible. But I'm just wondering like why we aren't able to get there like sooner. And I guess I'm wondering like the specifics of, yeah, why that is.
Well, I think we're gonna, I just want to go back and say if it turned out we could get there sooner, we would do that. So when we have the facts, we'll know. There are 2 things. One of them is the investment that's required to do it, given the other things that we are trying to do on campus. And the other one is the amount of disruption having to create 600 wells is going to create when you have populations of people who are here for 4 years. And we are going to continue to educate women who are going to go out there and be as tough as you are. And in other venues, we're going to continue to do that. And so we've got to do this in a time frame that allows us to meet our commitments to our mission and to our students and the rest of our community. So that's why we think that 20-year plan is more likely than your 12-year goal that we'd all like to reach. But and I don't know what the answer is. We'll know what the answer is when we finish the work and we have the facts. Does anybody else?
No, I think you've answered, very well, thank you.
I have a follow-up question to Bella's question, and that is, when will you be announcing this commitment? Do you, it sounds like maybe in the spring, is that correct? And
The goal is when this work is complete and we have the energy plan, the master plan in place, and we know what we're dealing with, so it would be in the spring.
Just to piggyback a little bit on that, is that because we're not doing, or Wellesley's not looking at it doing this with carbon offsets, that it's actually going in and systemically changing the way the campus produces and uses energy. That is a really big commitment, and that's going in, and since we're likely not going to reuse the steam tunnels, trenching new pipes through campus and going into the res halls and swapping out the radiators for a different type of system, that this is a large scale change. And so it's a lot about how palatable that is to your campuses and how much of that you want to take on in what time period. It's a short, I've seen campuses do it in small time frames, and it's a big sell.
Saw a hand up right there. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question about the Sustainability Committee. I'm wondering if you do accept any new members, and if so, what is the application process like?
Since Sarah is not here, I'll answer for her. So the students in the Sustainability Committee are actually selected by the student government. So you should talk to the student government if you're interested, and then and they can appoint you to join the committee.
I'm actually a staff member. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So for staff, yeah, for this year.
It's done through the agenda
Right.
committee, so there are assignments through.
To the agenda committee for the faculty, and then for the staff positions, there are almost all the staff positions are either positions that it's a ex officio positions, or designee of someone. Like I'm President Johnson's designee, Sarah is LTS's designee, so it goes like that. So, but if you're interested, there are a number of opportunities that we can get you involved in the sustainability. And maybe
Yeah, I would reach out to Sarah Barbaro, because she said, she really wants to hear from people, and I'm sure she could find a way to get you engaged. Sure. Anybody else? One more. Yeah.
So I'm sure you all saw that the University of California is divesting from fossil fuels, and the managers of the endowment argued in the LA Times that it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. So I'm curious whether E2040 will be thinking about asking the Board of Trustees to reconsider their position on fossil fuel divestment as part of this broader energy plan.
I'll take this one.
Laura.
In 2014, we worked with the students, and we said at that time that divesting would have a de minimis impact on the fossil fuel industry, and it could potentially have a negative impact on our ability to have the very best managers. Now, the investment office is looking at our whole energy portfolio in light of the same kind of considerations that were taken at the University of California system. And they're going to be coming forward in the spring also based on that study with their recommendation to the trustees, and the trustees will be looking at it.
That's great to hear. Thanks.
Any more questions? Come on, you're not going to get a panel like this very often. So if you want to know anything, here we go.
I saw in Jay's presentation that there was the little chunk of other energy at the bottom, and it was not addressed in the presentation, so will you address that now?
Jay, what is other?
You want to take that, Jay?
I could start, and then
Sure.
I'll hand off to you. You're right, it was not addressed, and I wondered if anybody would ask. And it genuinely is the
He was
other.
waiting.
At this point, there's no systematic plan for how to tackle the last, which are things like some refrigerants on campus, it's vehicles on campus, it's leaf blowers on campus. All of these are relatively small, but when you add them up, the other is not insignificant, and it is something we're going to have to think about. And again, I think as we think about E2040, the Sustainability Committee, we've got more planning to do there. But Dave, I know you've thought about some of those categories more.
Yeah, we know that we have to get rid of the others. That it's about 10% of the greenhouse gas emissions based on 2026. So, and actually, that could be one of the areas where we might be using carbon offsets, because as much as we want to, we cannot. There'll be some fossil fuel use on the campus all the time, given where the technology is. So we are actively working on it, and we will have a plan also how to tackle it as we go through this process.
Great. Anything else? Oh,
There's-
one more. Sorry, missed you.
This is kind of a niche question, but Dave, I know you mentioned in your presentation that 90% of janitorial supplies used are sustainable products. What does that mean? Like, what makes a product sustainable? Are those, especially like in light of the fact that only 30% of like our waste is recycled, or is it of recyclables that like could be recycled that are recycled? Yeah, I wonder what that looks like.
Well, that's actually a great question. Thanks for asking it. Janitorial supplies, there are a couple of types, and one is paper products, napkins and things like that, and that goes into the trash. We cannot recycle those, that's trash. The other are the chemicals that we use to clean, let's say, restrooms or bathrooms or other surfaces, and those are the products that we can procure them smartly. And what we do is there's an institute called, and that gives a Green Seal certification. And so we ensure when we buy, those products do have the Green Seal certification. So.
Follow-up, or do you have a follow-up, or that's? No. Okay, great, good. Okay.
Well, I was gonna ask, what does it take to get the Green Seal certification?
There are these organizations, Green Seal. I'm forgetting the name of the organization that gives Green Seal, but it is a well-renowned organization. It's not a fly-by-night organization. It's just like, because there are several organizations that if you pay them a certain fee, they will give you whatever certificate you want to. And so like the U.S. Green Building Council, that issues the LEED certification. So there are these institutes that offer these kinds of designations. And the institute that offers Green Seal, they do go through a rigorous chemical testing process. They look at how the chemical is actually produced, or the product is actually produced, and what is the environmental impact of producing that. And so they have a multiple number of issues that they consider before they will give the Green Seal to any product.
Okay, well, seeing no more questions, I want to thank everyone for coming again. I want to thank all the panelists for spending this much time, again, at the end of the day. And I know that Maggie and Olivia are looking for recruits to get engaged, so please feel free to speak with them afterwards and get involved. Thank you.